So I got a question from somebody asking me about the pineal gland and some information about it. And rather than respond to him, I figured I would just make a video on it because this is an extremely important concept for us to really realize our full potential, the full potential of our minds and our bodies, and why the powers that be don't tell us about it and what they're doing to basically spiritually ruin us. That's the reality of the situation. The pineal gland has always had very blatant symbolism by the powers that be. It's always just been thrown out there in our faces because it's very esoteric and there's a lot of knowledge associated with it that's very important. Of course, they don't want to tell us that knowledge. They just want to hang it out in the open and laugh at us for not realizing it, but we're starting to figure it out. The the history and the symbology of it, most notably, think of the Egyptians, the Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus is a direct map, basically, when you turn your head to the side of the structures around the pineal gland, with the Eye of Horus being the third eye. The Indian cultures also put the jewels on their forehead to symbolize this third eye. And also recently in modern religion, we have the Vatican. We have the Pope with his staff, right? And the pine cone, top of the staff, the pine cone represents the third eye. So he has the pine cone on the staff that he holds. And there's also a giant pine cone statue in Vatican City. So it's blatant. It's right there. And lastly, in movies, in Hollywood productions, you'll notice kind of a recurring theme of people being able to have certain powers because of the pineal gland. Matrix, for instance, they have the thing that they stick into the back of their heads and then it flips them into an alternate reality. I'll tell you how that's mostly true but not really true in this video. The pineal gland, anyway, the anatomy. It's called the third eye because it literally has rods and cones in it, and the nerve centers, the nerve vortexes that the pineal gland is connected into is the same ones that run our eyes and our brains. So it's almost literally a third eye, and it actually responds to darkness and to light. It's what governs our circadian rhythms. So what happens is when it starts getting dark at nighttime, our pineal gland will start releasing melatonin to get us to go into sleep, right? That's why it's so important to shut off screens and iPads and TVs and computers in front of our faces, because it'll actually mess up with the melatonin production of our pineal gland. So it's literally a third eye. It regulates our sleep cycles, and most importantly here, when we are in that sleep cycle, in what's called heavy REM sleep and deep, deep sleep, what our pineal gland will do, right? It'll start releasing that melatonin to get us drowsy, to get us into that deeper consciousness into sleep. And that melatonin is only a couple of jumps away from a chemical called DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. Very important. This chemical is actually found in all living things, but in humans, we have that special little pineal gland where it especially collects. And what DMT is it's essentially a crystal, but it's a piezoelectric crystal. And what piezoelectricity means is that it's a crystal that shoots off color. And it can actually, what should I say here? When a guy who used to make a shitload of LSD, right? I forget his name. But he would also experiment with DMT, and he made a lot of DMT, and it's been documented that, I'll see if I can find a link to this down below. I'll call it DMT colors or whatever. He would chip it from the petri dish that he would make it in, and it would, every time he would chip it, it would shoot off, in a bright room, shoot off rays of light, colors, rainbows. So DMT, what it literally is, when it collects in our pineal glands, we go into heavy REM sleep. Our pineal gland acts as almost like a Stargate, and an electromagnetic shielding occurs to where these piezoelectric crystals will actually visually pick up energy. It essentially connects us to the ether, or to the morphogenic field, as Sheldrake would call it, or the source field, as Wilcock would call it. So your pineal gland is literally it's the bridge between the physical and the metaphysical. It's the bridge between your space-time body and your time-space body, or your astral body, or that body that literally is connected to everything. And think, remember, back to the Matrix, when they would, boom, pump that needle in the back of their heads and they would just download shit, and, it's like they were in that alternate time-space reality. They were able to manipulate their environment and create their reality with much more, much easier. That's essentially what our pineal gland does. When we are able to harbor our pineal gland, the abilities of it, the powers of it, in specific ways, we're actually able to access that God consciousness, to get those downloads, to remote view, to have extrasensory perception, to literally achieve those higher states of consciousness. Our pineal gland's that bridge. Do you see why they don't want us to know about it? And do you also see, this leads me into, do you also see why they toxify us? The reality of the situation is they're putting toxins in our food and our water and into our bodies that will literally dampen the spiritual abilities and that connection to our pineal gland. This is why it's interesting to note the pineal gland being outside the blood-brain barrier, because that makes it very prone to toxins circulating in our blood. And this is where fluoride enters the picture. Fluoride is a neurotoxin that will literally calcify our pineal gland. This is the reason why it's in municipal water supplies and in our dental products and in many pharmaceutical supplements, and why Teflon is so heavily pushed, because Teflon off-gases fluoride. It hampens our spiritual nature. It doesn't let us have that conscious awakening that we so need. So you see why it's important to avoid the toxins and poisons in your life that will calcify your pineal gland, the fluoride, inorganic minerals, heavy metals, aluminum and mercury. Aluminum is very reactive with fluoride and will decimate your brain. So avoid those things, but also just live a healthy lifestyle, a high vibratory lifestyle of positive thinking, of keeping your body clean, drinking enough water, pure water, distilled and reverse osmosis water, and everything associated with living healthy, because that will keep your pineal gland healthy. And then I also, lastly in this video, wanted to quickly go over some supplements and techniques that I have used that I'll pass along to you that you can experiment with. Life is all just about experimentation, so I'm offering you some avenues to travel down. Now, these are some things to help you activate that pineal gland and to harmonize and cohere your DNA, essentially, because our DNA is the antenna that activates the pineal gland. So first and foremost, meditation, right? So of course, sleep. You want to make sure you sleep enough, get into the heavy REM sleep, and have normal circadian rhythms, and but also meditation. So when we're in that waking state, you want to, and you do meditate, right? That's why we meditate, to lower our brain waves, right, into the alpha and theta and delta range, because the lower we can get our brain waves, that's when our pineal gland starts secreting DMT and whatnot. So that's how we connect, is through focused thought. So the more you can focus your thought, not only in meditation, but all the time, right, then that'll help with the health of your pineal gland. And it's really interesting to note, kind of side tangent, the Schumann resonance is rising, right? The natural frequency, the natural heartbeat of the earth that all life entrains to, that essentially our brain waves entrain to. So the Schumann resonance is increasing lately into a more harmonic associated with higher states of consciousness. So it's like our waking consciousness, our brain waves are increasing naturally, but then it's creating more of a divide between the brain waves associated with DMT production. So it's like we wake up, we're at a higher stage of consciousness, but then it's a deeper bridge. I don't know. That's anyway. So meditation. Then we have brainwave entrainment. So when you meditate, you can also listen to what's called binaural beats. And binaural beats, well, you just use your normal headphones, but you can listen to certain programs where the frequency of each earbud will be off. So it might be off by like 3 or 4 hertz, and your brain will start to entrain to the how off it is. So 3 or 4 hertz, that's like a theta, like a low theta alpha or brainwave range, or higher delta. So that's like associated with deeper consciousness and deep meditation. So you can do brainwave entrainment, and then also there's some supplements. One being Klamath Lake algae. Klamath Lake algae is much like spirulina and chlorella, but the difference between Klamath Lake algae is that it only grows in one place in the world, Klamath Lake, Oregon, and it can actually suck in nitrogen from the atmosphere. So being able to suck in nitrogen, unlike spirulina and chlorella, gives Klamath-like algae an especially good ability to create neurotransmitter precursors for our brain. So it'll help balance the pineal, pituitary, hypothalamus quadrant of our endocrine system very well. So Klamath-like algae. There's also chaga mushroom. I got some, where's my tea? Kava tea. Got some chaga extract in here. So I do some medicinal mushrooms in an extract and tea every day. And you can also do those. Chaga especially is very high in melanin. And melanin is that precursor to melatonin, which is the precursor to DMT. So just adds more to that, right? Adds more to the endogenous production of DMT. Oh, that's where I'm sorry, this video is so long, but there are exogenous, which means outside of the body ways to get DMT produced in your pineal gland. Those are these psychedelics like medicinal or psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca. You can literally just smoke DMT, but I am all about the natural endogenous production of it. So it's kind of like in many different health concepts. You don't want your body to focus on the external. You want it to be able to create it on its own. So I've delved into medicinal mushrooms a couple times. I'll talk more about my philosophies and all that, but I want you to be able to produce it on your own, to be that spiritual being without the need to rely on the physical, right? So anyway, Klamath-like algae, chaga mushroom, and fulvic acid. Fulvic acid, I've mentioned that in one of my videos, but briefly, it's a compound that's found in soils that we don't get enough of through our food anymore. You can supplement with it, and it is I think it's the highest source of pure free-form electrons that we could take, so it's very energizing to us. It can not only help us detoxify very well, but uptake and absorb nutrients. So those three things, Klamath-like algae, fulvic acid, chaga. Make sure you live very healthily. Make sure you are doing your meditation. You can try brainwave entrainment, and make sure you are focusing on being a loving, thoughtful person and not a negative shitball, because it all matters. And that's basically it on the pineal gland. Thank you very much, and thank you all for supporting my videos as well with whatever donations and just nice, kind words you're doing and sharing you're doing of this information as well. So anyway, done.